I'd been through it before and vowed never again. Guess I should have listened to myself. This time, however, I wouldn't be spending 3,000 euros to have some private detective follow her and collect evidence. This time, I'm just filling the paperwork and saving myself the money. My ex-wife, Lucy, after 6 years told me she was dissatisfied with our life. It seems I worked too many hours, we never went anywhere, and she was bored out of her mind. I guess if I hadn't hired a person to clean the house once a week and taken her out to dinner 3 times a week, she wouldn't have been so bored, but that's another story. Per Lucy, things had been going downhill for a while, and I was too much in love or naive to see what was really happening. Being a good husband, I cut back on my hours and became the model husband, or so I thought. I think all cheating women read from the same damn handbook. It starts off with nitpicking, then bickering, followed by full-blown arguments. Then there is the 180-degree turnaround. You don't argue anymore. Hell, you barely talk except about useless items. Your once great intimate life has dwindled down from 3 to 4 times a week to maybe once if you're lucky. And that one time is like fooling with a store mannequin. You suck it up, apologize for being a jerk even though you're not, and for a while it gets a little bit better, but it's not like before. At this point you start to think the unthinkable, and hire someone to confirm your bride is still pure and untouched by anyone but you. It doesn't take even 2 weeks before you find out you're not even getting sloppy seconds anymore, as your wife is now withholding closeness to show you who's boss. You think about that 12-year-old bottle in the cabinet and dismiss that idea. You'll only open that bottle when the tramp is on the outside looking in. Another $4,000 to David, a heartless prick of an attorney, and the paperwork is filed. You say a silent prayer of thanks to your late father for insisting on a prenuptial agreement, and another that your bride was trusting and willingly signed it. I guess back then she was in love with you. You have her served while she's at pilot's class. You're in the back watching through the observation glass as the server walks in, asks if she is Mrs. Stephen Moore, and after hearing her say yes, hands her a large manila envelope and tells her she's served. I only wish she could have seen the look on her face at that exact moment. No matter, it was done or will be in a couple of months. I was fair, how can I not be? It's all laid out in the prenup. She comes home to a check for 50,000 Garrison, her clothes in 15 garbage bags. The locks changed, and all her credit cards canceled. I'm sorry to say the new BMW I gave her for Christmas is also hers free and clear. There is the Steve honey, it means nothing. But it did to me, I told her, and I'd hired a van and driver to transport her stuff, so in 15 minutes it's all over. Where's she? When I didn't know or even care, I go inside. I've got a 12-year-old bottle calling my name. That is the one and only time I got loaded. After 4 more months of telling her no, and then no freaking way in hell, she relents and I'm finally free of what once had been a pretty decent wife. Truthfully, alone at night in bed, I miss the old Lucy sometimes. Then I think about the cheating and I no longer miss her. I just thank God we hadn't had any kids yet. I haven't done anything for about 1.5 years. I go out with groups of friends, but make it known up front, I do not want to be fixed up, at least not yet. At 3 years, I start to date more frequently and finally jump back into the dating scene. I'm getting more nookie than I did the last 2 years I was with my ex. Then I met Vicky at a cancer fundraiser. I'm sitting across from her and my eyes never left her the entire evening. More than once she looked my way and all I could do was smile. I heard from my friends that she was divorced and that she was still bitter towards men. But I wasn't just any man, and I also had been cheated on, so at least we had something in common. Wrong. It took 2 weeks before she'd even answer my calls and another 2 before she'd sit down with me and have coffee. It took another month before she'd warmed up to me enough where she would have dinner with me. If this woman was playing hard to get, she was doing one hell of a job. Dinner was going well until the 3rd degree started. How did I meet my ex-wife? What went wrong with my marriage, and what did I think I could have done to change the eventual outcome? With every answer, Vicky had another question, and eventually I got tired of it. She cheated on me, I finally said, probably too loudly. She took a vow to be faithful to me and broke it on at least 5 occasions. Why didn't you go to counseling? It might have saved your marriage, she said a bit too smugly for my comfort. The first time she took him to bed, we were done. She knew how I felt about fidelity, and it was written in black and white on the prenup she signed. The party who cheats gets only a token amount of the joint assets. Well, I tried to work it out with my ex for about a year before we split everything down the middle and I walked away, but at least I can say I tried everything. Vicky, you were a lot more forgiving than I'd ever be. Look, she just ended up being a lousy wife. Can we just drop this subject? It's putting me in a bad mood. Steve, I just want to know the type of man I'm dating. That's all. Well, now you know, and if I don't fit your criteria for a suitable date, well then I'm sorry, but that is who I am. After that, the evening seemed to go downhill, and by 10:30 I was looking for an excuse to end this date and take her home. The drive home was quiet. I walked her to her door and got a kiss for my trouble, but thank God wasn't invited in. I took her name and number out of my phone. I didn't deserve to be treated the way she had. I was at a nice steakhouse with a lovely lady having a fantastic time when I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Vicky. Fancy meeting you here, she said, looking towards my date. Where are my manners? I said, moving around in my seat. Vicky, this is Amber. Amber, this is Vicky, a lady I met at this year's cancer fundraiser. I said it with a smile on my face, but I wanted Vicky to disappear, and quickly. I saw you and just wanted to say hello. By this time, her date had walked up behind her. We're on our way to that new jazz club that just opened off Fairmont downtown. Well, have a nice evening, she said, finally walking away with her date. You used to date her? Amber asked. It was just one date and it wasn't too memorable, I said, reaching for her hand. Did I get lucky that night? No luck involved. Amber dragged me into her condo and had her way with me until we both fell asleep out of sheer exhaustion. 2 days later, an email popped up on my computer. Nice seeing you again. Maybe we can go out for drinks sometime. I think we got off on the wrong foot last time. Yeah, think. We emailed and then talked on the phone a couple of times over the next 2 weeks before agreeing to meet up at a club that catered to the over-30s clientele. Why in the hell am I doing this? I asked myself, sitting at a table for two waiting on her. If she just would have let me pick her up, but no, Vicky thought since the last time hadn't gone too smoothly, she'd meet me here. She was now 15 minutes late. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her walk in. Damn if she didn't look hot. I'm not sure if what she had on could have been officially called a dress because it didn't contain that much material. Every guy in the room thought of her as an eye candy as she walked by, even the ones with dates. I got to my feet and took 3 steps towards her. Sorry I'm late, my car wouldn't start and I had to take a cab here. Don't worry, the way you look, I would have waited all night. Damn, that sounded lame, but it was true, I thought to myself as I pulled out her chair. We can sit later, right now all I want to do is dance. And we did. For the next 25 minutes, the DJ played 2 fast songs, then 2 slow ones alternating for the next hour, I had to tell. More than one guy that no, Vicky was not going to dance with them. She just smiled and held me a little tighter. When we got back to our table, I ordered a couple of drinks, something sour for her and light for me. This time around, there was no interrogations or the attitude she displayed on our last date. She broke the ice. I'm sorry about last time. I'd been on some really awful dates and decided to find out a little about you right away. I'm sorry I was so blunt, but if you were a jerk, I wasn't going to waste my time making small talk for the rest of the night. Well, did I pass, or what do you think? I'm here, aren't I? The rest of the evening we floated on air. Well, I did anyway. She was nicely put together and fit into my arms perfectly. Screw the fast songs. We finished the night, only dancing to the slow ones. Would you mind giving me a lift home? Trying to get a cab at this late hour would take an act of God. We walked out of the club arm in arm. I got a kiss with a lot of passion behind it, but no invite in. Did I expect it? Not really. Vicky was the type who was going to take it slow. I hoped it wouldn't be too slow after holding her hot body in my arms all night. Twice a week we got together. Slowly we took it up a notch, and by week 6 I woke up Sunday morning in her bed. I hope you don't feel less of me, she said, watching me wake up. You're better than I thought you'd be, she said with a smile. What, you thought you'd have to show me where all your parts were and what to do with them? After all, I was married before. So was I, but my ex never got it that making love involves 2 people, and that both people need to get off before you stop. I laughed. She didn't. He was selfish, and not only with me. That's why he's an ex. Men are stupid, even those that have been married and divorced at least once. After that night, our honeymoon period started. I can't say I was in love, but I was dazzled by her beauty and found we both liked to do most of the same things. I didn't consider us exclusive just yet, and it looks like neither did she, because when I went out to dinner one night with a client and his wife, I saw Vicky out with some other guy. We didn't even play the I see you game. She saw me looking at her when I sat down, and I had other things on my agenda. My client and his wife were a wonderful couple and were madly in love after 35 years. "Steve, are you married?" his wife asked. "Was, but not anymore." "Can you see yourself getting married again?" "Not sure. She would have to be pretty special, and there's the trust issue I'd have to overcome." "Your ex cheated on you, didn't she?" "She was pretty good at reading me." "Yes, and it didn't end all that nice." "Well, there are a lot of nice ones out there, even ones that have been around the block. Once before, like yourself, you're too nice a guy to be alone." She was right about that. Being single sucked. But not being able to trust your partner was worse. We glanced at one another once more before she and her friend left. I wondered if she was going to sleep with him, and it bugged the hell out of me. A half hour later, we were just finishing up dessert and saying our goodnights. That's when his wife leaned in. "I hope you can work it out with your friend. Maybe it was a business dinner like ours were." She smiled, squeezed my hand, and the two of them walked off hand in hand. So much for hiding my emotions. I stayed and had a drink at the bar. I told myself I wouldn't overreact unless she had slept with him. Then I didn't know what I'd do. I had just thrown my car keys on the kitchen counter when I felt my phone vibrate. "Can you come over now? I think we need to talk." I was in no mood to talk to Vicky at this late hour, but I did need to know one thing. "Did you sleep with him?" "Yes," came her reply a few seconds later. "I wasn't going to lie to you if you asked." That was the last one I read before shutting my phone off. Vicky texted and called me Wednesday and Thursday nights. I didn't respond because I still didn't know what to say to her. Was I jealous? Hell yes, and even though we weren't officially exclusive, I hadn't even so much as looked at another woman. That it looked like it would change. Friday I took Beth out to a club on the west side of downtown. It was loud, but a local group was playing, of whom I knew two of the band members. We danced, had a few drinks, and I even introduced Beth to the band at their 9-hour break. I was having a pretty decent time when I got the familiar tap on my shoulder. "Do you want to dance?" she asked. Beth looked annoyed. "Can't you see I'm with someone? Besides, you're probably here with your own date," I replied over the music. "I'm here with a couple of girlfriends. If you decide to take me up on my offer of a dance, I'll be at that table," she said, pointing to 1-3 over. "I'll think about it." Our eyes locked on each other once more before she left. I thought you said you weren't going out with anyone," Beth asked. "We just broke up," I said, talking into her ear. "Does she know it?" That brief meeting ruined my night. When Beth caught me looking over at Vicky too many times she asked me to take her home, I didn't argue. "Don't call me until you two have both broken it off." I didn't even get a kiss goodnight. I felt my phone vibrate at 1:15. "Did you sleep with her?" "I don't kiss and tell, unlike some other people." I went back to sleep. Early Saturday morning I heard my doorbell ring. Once, then it seemed every 10 seconds or so. "Damn kids." "You can run, but you can't hide," Vicky said, leaning against the doorframe. 2 cups of coffee and I assumed breakfast in the bag. "Are you going to invite me in? Or are we going to eat breakfast and talk on your front stoop?" "Either one works for me." I just moved out of the way, and she walked in. I followed her into my kitchen and watched as she unpacked everything. "Not sure what you liked, so I just winged it." "Which cabinet are the plates in?" Half asleep, I shuffled over, got out 2 plates, juice glasses, and some silverware. I looked. Over at the clock, it wasn't even 6. No, not yet. We ate in silence, but our eyes never stopped talking. With the food gone, I sat there, nursing my cup of coffee. "Vicky, what do you want?" "First talk, and then after that play it by ear." I was too tired to get into what I knew was going to be a long conversation. "I'm going back to sleep for a couple of hours. You're welcome to join me, and then when we get back up, maybe we can talk." I walked up the stairs to my bedroom. Vicky followed. She stripped down to nothing and then gave me the look. "Hey, if I knew we'd end up in bed right off the bat, I'd brought something hot to wear." She smiled and slipped under the sheet. We spooned and slept for the next hour. All right, who's kidding whom? Our eyes might have been closed, but neither of us slept. And with her innocently rubbing her naked body against mine, when I got excited, it was no surprise. Did I do that? Vicky asked, reaching behind her to grab hold of me. She flipped over and smiled at me. Is sleep time over yet? We screwed for the next 30 minutes non-stop. I wasn't 20 any longer, and show me a guy over 30 who can keep it up for over a half an hour. And I'll show you a liar. That is, unless he pops a couple of those blue pills. Lying on my back, I said, I need a shower. No, you don't, Vicky said, kissing my lips. You smell like me, and I want to keep it that way. By Monday, I'll be too ripe to go into work, and my boss won't like that, so let's hit the shower. Besides, we've got a few things to iron out today. There wasn't any shouting, but voices were raised on more than one occasion. I want to be exclusive, or I don't want to see you anymore, I told her. Can't we just take it slow and see how it goes? Is that because you want to sleep with other guys? I said as soon as she'd finished talking. I don't want to have to worry about who you're screwing outside of me, and if it doesn't work out, we'll at least be able to say we gave it our best shot. Steve, this is a big step for me. I'll need to sleep on it. She did, in my bed that night. Monday morning we were exclusive. I'd like to say everything was coming up roses, but that wasn't the case. There were adjustments on both sides, and a couple of times I doubted we'd make it. After 3 months, Vicky moved in with me. I admit I begged her because I wanted to wake up next to her every morning, not just on the weekends. Hell, I even gave her my large bedroom double closet for all her clothes, and she did have a lot of clothes. I was crazy happy, and I couldn't imagine my life without her. At 9 months, I made the decision to ask her to be my bride. Did I have any reservations? Yes and no both. I'd been burned once, but I couldn't live my life thinking that every woman was going to screw me over. I took the plunge. Forget dropping down on one knee to propose. I just asked her over dessert at Tony's Italian restaurant. My only mistake was not getting the ring first. I thought it would be a nice touch if we picked it out together. I was wrong. I held her hands in mine over the table and professed my love for her when I asked her to. Be mine forever, she said. Yes, yes, I will. Then it kind of went downhill a bit. She held out her hand, and I supposed expecting me to slip on the ring I didn't have. Hon, I thought it would be nicer if we went together to pick out your ring. You mean you didn't buy me a ring? Were you hedging in case I said no? I had to get control back. You know my taste in jewelry, I said, looking into her eyes. I would have probably bought some gaudy thing you would have hated but loved me enough to say you loved it. This way, you can buy the ring of your dreams. That is so sweet. I love you so much, she said, leaning in so we could kiss. All right. She spent more than I was planning to spend on her ring, but she loved it, and that was all that mattered. The wedding was small and intimate. Our family and friends came to no more than 60 people. We got married in a gazebo in a rose garden near where her parents lived. Her younger married sister, Amber, stood up for her, and my older brother, Greg, was my best man. I rented a room in one of the better restaurants there, and by 10:30, Vicky was all mine forever. After a very private honeymoon, we settled into our post-honeymoon lives, and it was spectacular. One night, 6 months later, after rocking my world, she asked me what I thought about children. I know you said you wanted to, but we never discussed when. What do you think about now? Still in the afterglow, I told her to give me 20 minutes and we'd start on it. She smiled. I got the best nights of my life for the next month, and we sealed the deal. I'm pregnant, a wild Vicky said, holding up the test strip. You better be happy because I'm ecstatic. I was. I was the doting husband before and even after our daughter Carrie was born. Diapers and night feeding in the hours when I thought she'd never stop crying as I paced the house, telling her it was all right. I did it all. 2 years later, when Dale was born, our family was complete. Instead of Vicky going back on the pill, I got snipped. It didn't hurt, but I was uncomfortable for a couple of days. It was a small price to pay for Vicky not having to worry about birth control pills any longer. Life was good until it wasn't. She settled into becoming a stay-at-home wife, and I pushed it at work to be the best breadwinner I could be. After all, I had my family to support. For 5.5 years, I floated on air. Then I noticed a pinhole in my balloon. Vicky was still the perfect mother and rocked me in bed 3 to 4 nights a week. But there was something there, just under the surface. Something I couldn't put my finger on. I let it slid until I noticed the faraway look in her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. "Hun, are you okay? You look distracted," I said, walking up behind her as she stared out the window. "Just thinking about how happy I am," reaching back for my hand. I kissed her hand and forgot about my groundless suspicions. We were in love, that's all. That mattered. After completing a major project at work that took 3 long, grueling months, I took my bride out to the best restaurant in town. I'm sorry I haven't been home as much as I should have these past months, but the profit we made on that project more than made up for it. I reached into my pocket and brought out a red velvet box and opened it. The ring contained 6 perfect diamonds, 1 for each year we'd been married. The look on her face was priceless. "You shouldn't have," she said, but pulled it out and tried it on. It was expensive, but we had plenty of money and I wanted to do something special for my wife. She hadn't bugged me about my hours and had gone beyond what most wives would have. Life was good again, or so I thought. When our lovemaking went from 4 times a week to maybe 2, I said nothing. She said. She was tired and sometimes not feeling well were the excuses she used. I didn't bug her but took notice. When I waited 3 weeks for her to initiate intimacy, and she never did, I knew something was up. When I walked past the den and saw her on the computer, I smiled and asked if I could help her with anything, being the computer expert of the family. The surprised look on her face said bunches. She looked up and said that she was just finishing up, and 20 seconds later she closed her laptop. "I'd better think about dinner, or you'll be taking us all out tonight," she said with a weak smile. With a peck on the lips, Vicky headed towards the kitchen. As I watched her walk away, my curiosity got the better of me. When she turned the corner, I snuck into the den and opened her laptop. It was still on her home page. I spent the next 10 minutes trying to see what she had been working on. Nothing. Her history, along with her email accounts, had been erased. I got that old sickening feeling in my gut. Now I watched her like a hawk. I kept a daily log of anything that was out of the ordinary. The little things started to add up. Out of the blue, she started having lunch with her sister during the week. I had no hard evidence, but every time I asked her what was wrong, I got the same old excuses. Nothing was the same anymore. When I'd finally had enough, one day I followed her when she mentioned another lunch date. I hung back in my rental and watched as she dropped our children off at her mother's. She had on jeans and a tank top, so she wasn't dressed smoking hot for some illicit rendezvous, or so I thought. When she drove away, I called her sister's cell to confirm their lunch date as I followed her, staying about 3 car lengths back. She answered on the second ring. "Steve, what do I owe the pleasure of your call?" I had to be careful not to tip my hand. "I'm planning a little get-together for next weekend and need to know if you've got anything scheduled." "Let me look in my phone," she said as her phone went quiet for a few seconds. Then I heard it. "Mom, can I have a drink?" "Just a second, honey. Mommy's on the phone with Uncle Steve." She came back on. "Nope, nothing scheduled. Also tell my wayward sister to call me once in a while, will you? I know she's busy with the kids, but a call once in a while wouldn't kill her." "No problem. I'll give her the message and we'll get back to you about next weekend." Damn it, not again. That's when I lost her at the next stoplight. Vicky went through a yellow and I was about to run the red when cars filled the intersection. I watched as her car went down 1 more block and then took a right. Come on, damn it. Change. When the light finally changed, I floored it. I took the right and then nothing. There was no sign of her car. I drove around the area for about an hour, even perusing the parking lot of 2 motels in the area. Nothing. I called her cell phone. It went right to voicemail. No. I drove home and waited for her to return. I felt like a drink, but thought the better of it. I needed to have a clear head when she finally came home. At 4:30, she walked in dragging Dale and Carrie. "Steve, what are you doing home so early?" a surprised Vicky said, struggling to maneuver. "Both kids through the front door." I got up and helped her. "I had a light afternoon and figured I'd come home to be with my wife. How was your lunch with Amber?" "Nice," was all she said. "Where did you guys eat anyway?" Her eyes got wide and she didn't reply right away. "That new salad place over on Vineland? I don't remember the name, but it was nice." "Why? Don't you make yourself useful and grab their bags from the car while I put them down for a little nap?" There were no traces in her car. I was hoping for something to tell me where she'd been. For the last couple of hours, I was angry but played the good husband. With the kids down for the count, I watched as Vicky stripped and walked into the shower. Dale might have a touch of the flu. He threw up on me when I picked him up at Mom's. You want company? No, just gonna do a quick wash-up. What do you want for dinner tonight? Food was the last thing on my mind. How about we bring in a couple of pizzas? Sounds good, Vicky said, stepping out of the shower. I moved next to her while she dried off. No visual marks anywhere I could see. This was her third fake lunch with her sister. I remembered how it started with Lucy. The lies were there and the decrease in lovemaking, but I had no actual proof. Now I wish I'd had Vicky sign a prenup like I had with Lucy. I was doomed. Dinner was quiet, too quiet. While my two kids ate, I watched as Vicky played with her slice of pizza. Was it guilt? I helped get the kids ready for bed. I usually wound them up with a little rough housing, but tonight I didn't have it in me. A story, a kiss and hug, and that was it for tonight. Vicky walked around like she was in a trance until I snuck up behind her and wrapped my arms around her, kissing her on the neck. Steve, not tonight, she said, trying to pull away from me. If not tonight, when? I said angrily. For Christakis, it's been almost 2 weeks. When do? You plan on taking care of business at home? Steve, please not tonight. I'll make it up to you tomorrow, I promise. Fine, I said sarcastically, walking towards my home office. She just doesn't want me to. Find out she was with someone else this afternoon. I thought about slamming, then locking the door. The email I sent to the attorney that handled my divorce with Lucy was short and right to the point. Go ahead with the information I sent you yesterday. File under adultery, and I want custody of my kids. I'll get back to you tomorrow, but I need this done yesterday. I knew I had no evidence that Vicky cheated on me, but the circumstantial evidence was overwhelming. For the second time, I had married a great caregiver, but a lousy wife. This time, however, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was cutting her loose before not later. I slept on the couch in my office. I was on my way to work before anyone else in the house was stirring. I had a lot to do today. I froze all our bank assets. I didn't close the credit cards, but I reduced their daily limit. My shark sent me a rough draft by noon. After making a few minor changes, I faxed it back to him. I had the revised divorce paperwork faxed to me by 5, where for enough money, anything can be done in a day. However, I told him not to file until I got back with him. Tonight would suck, but it had to be done. I came home to a quiet house. Vicky, I yelled. I'm in the kitchen, was the monotone reply I received. I opened my briefcase and took out the manila envelope. Mine as well, get it over with, I thought, walking into the kitchen. Vicky was sitting at the kitchen table, a full glass in front of her. She had that faraway look in her eyes again. Maybe she somehow figured out that I knew. You want something to drink? She asked, walking towards the refrigerator. Yeah, that would be nice. She opened a can and placed it in front of me. The kids are staying with my parents tonight. She then took a long swallow. I need to talk to you about something and you're not going to like it. I almost said, I already know, but figured this was her show and I just sat there sipping on my drink, fingering the envelope. For the last month, when I told you I was having lunch with my sister, I lied. I was seeing someone. I almost jumped up and called her a tramp, but held my tongue. Steve, I've got a brain tumor. Dr. Kyup and his staff over the last 3 weeks have been doing every test known to man to figure out just how bad it is. I was stunned. Yeah, I had the same reaction. For a while I've been having headaches and having trouble focusing. I figured I was just tired and needed more sleep. No matter how much sleep I got, I still felt off. That's when I went to our GP and had a full checkup. She took another long drink. He couldn't find the problem, so he referred me to a specialist. Wait a minute, I said, leaning forward. This has been going on for months and you never told me something was wrong. Steve, when I wasn't feeling up to snuff and turned you down at night, you got angry. I wanted to make love with you, but I just didn't have it in me and I didn't want to get into another argument. I slipped the envelope off the table onto my lap. Last week I had a CAT scan and an MRI to confirm what Dr. Kyup suspected. Steve, I'm so sorry, she blurted out before breaking down. I was at her side in less than a second. For the next 20 minutes her head was buried in the nape of my neck. She would stop for a few seconds and then start again. About this time in my mind I was calling myself a lot of ugly names. How could I think this woman would cheat on me? I pulled her off my shoulder and looked into those red eyes. Tell me, what did he say? Today? It took her about a minute to compose herself. He said that if I don't have surgery and... Soon I'm going to die. I don't want to die, she wailed, reaching for me again. So the next 2 hours went by, and by 8 on I'd gotten most of what Dr. Keop had said today. He wants the 2 of us in his office tomorrow morning at 9 so he can discuss what comes next. I'm so sorry, she said for the second time. Vicky, this isn't your fault, and together we're going to beat this. You hear me? She nodded her head, but I knew she didn't believe me. She was scared, and so was I. By 10 she had collapsed on the bed. No wonder she'd looked out of it over the last couple of weeks. She had to be going nuts not knowing. I didn't want to worry you, was her excuse for not telling me. While she slept, I beat myself up on the inside. The next morning we stopped for coffee and a bite to eat. Neither of us was hungry, but needed caffeine if we were to make it through today. Dr. Keop was estimated in his early 50s. He laid it all out, showing me the x-rays and explaining what he was proposing. Mr. Moore, it's not good, but I believe I can remove the tumor, with hopefully no permanent damage to your wife's brain. What are the odds of her coming out of it like she was before this growth attached itself to her? Mr. Moore, like I told your wife, she has an 80% chance of living a normal life if we operate soon. I just don't know at this moment if the tumor is malignant. That will change the odds tremendously, and not in her favor. When can you do the surgery? I have an opening for next Tuesday, and if you agree, we've got a lot to do before then. To me, there wasn't an option. A full physical including blood work is how it started. X-rays, another MRI, and a bunch of other tests I didn't fully understand my bride had to endure. Her parents kept our kids, but we made sure to see them, or at least call them every night. On the night before the surgery, we were lying in bed trying to somehow get even a little sleep. It wasn't working. The only thing I heard was her breathing. And knowing I was awake, she spoke without so much as looking at me. I found it in the trash Sunday. My heart stopped for a brief moment. I was emptying the household waste baskets when I saw the envelope balled up sitting on the top. I don't know why I took it out and opened it, but now I wish to God I hadn't. She went quiet. I'm so sorry, I whispered in her ear. I thought it was happening to me all over again. I should have talked to you. But you didn't? You thought so little of me that you'd divorce me without even talking to me first? She went quiet again. When this is all over, one way or another, I'm leaving you, and I'm not sure if I'm coming back. I said nothing. My actions had already spoken for me. The surgery took 9 hours. I sat in the waiting room until I couldn't any longer. I gave the receptionist my cell number and started walking the grounds. I felt lower than horse manure for what I'd almost done, but the only thing I truly wanted was for my bride to live, even if it was without me. I felt my phone vibrate and read the text. I ran to the waiting room and Dr. Keop. He looked almost as tired as I felt. I believe we got it all, he said, pulling off his cap. We sent cuttings down to our lab, and the initial prognosis is that the tumor was benign. I let out the breath I'd been holding since our conversation started. Can I see her? Not right now. Why don't you go home, get some rest, have a bite to eat, and come back later tonight? By then she will be in a room, and you can stay all night if you wish. I took his suggestion. I called everyone and gave them the good news, also telling them to stay away until I let them know she was up for visitors. I thanked her mom for watching the kids and said I'd stop over on my way back to the hospital. I showered, shaved, and had a full breakfast at Denny's, not knowing when I'd have time to eat again. I told my children their mommy was doing fine and they'd be able to see them in a couple of days. They wanted to go with me and couldn't understand why not. She's really going to be fine, isn't she? Her mom asked to walk me out to my car. The doctor said she's going to need a lot of rest, but she's going to be just fine in a month or 2. I hope then the 2 of you can work through your problems. It would be a shame for the 2 of you to break up after all of this. I gave her a surprised look. Yeah, she told me everything. Now I'll tell you what I told her. All marriages take work, and if you don't talk to one another, you mine as well. Pack it in because it's not going to last. You should have talked to my daughter when you first suspected something was going on, and she should have told you when she first realized she was sick. You two have been given a second chance, don't blow it. With a hug and kiss on the cheek, I headed back to the hospital and my wife. The nurse at the desk told me to go right in. Your wife woke up about a half hour ago and wondered where you were. I told her you went home to change and to get something to eat. She's still groggy, so if she fades out on you and goes back to sleep, don't worry. Thank you for everything you've done. Don't thank me, Dr. Cube did the surgery. The lights were out in the room, but the blinds had been pulled back. The lights from the cars in the parking lot and out in the street bounced off her ceiling and traveled down her walls. She turned to face me when the door closed. I walked to her bedside and grabbed her hand. How are you feeling? In a soft voice, she said, Thankfully, I'm still drugged up and can't feel a thing, but when the good drugs wear off, I'll probably start to feel some pain. Thank God I've got this thing, she said, holding up what looked like a red call button. If and when I start to have any pain, I push this button and I get a shot of pain reliever. Neat, huh? Only problem is that you can only push it once an hour. That's so you don't overdose. I kissed the top of her bandaged head. Love the new haircut, you going punk on me? When she gave me a small smile, I knew I'd broken the ice. I'm sorry you found the divorce papers. After you told me about your condition, I crumbled them up and tossed them in the trash can outside. How did you find them? Someone's dog must have knocked over our trash can, and when I collected everything, I saw the envelope on the top when I went to dump the kitchen trash. The only reason I opened it was because I could see my name on the outside, and I knew I'd never seen it before. She went quiet again, but never took her eyes off mine. Imagine my surprise when I saw what was inside. I started to say I was sorry and gave her my reasons, but she stopped me. At least I know now what you really think of me. Vicky, it was a mistake, a horrible mistake. Damn right it was. Neither one of us said anything after that. Vicky lay back down on the bed and closed her eyes. Me? I just sat there in that uncomfortable plastic chair and held her hand until she fell back asleep. It was going to take more than an I'm sorry this time around. I spent the week going from work to the hospital. I snuck my little ones in on Thursday, which scored me points with Vicky. There were tears, hugs, and even a bit of laughter. That is before we got caught and kicked out. The following week I took Vicky home. I spent 3 days seeing to her every need, and then was replaced by her mother. I brought home dinner most nights, telling her mother she had a husband at home that probably missed her. If I know my husband, he's in seventh heaven doing all the things I never let him do. After all this, it'll take me a month to retrain him again. I knew she loved Herb to death, and I felt bad for him because of all the hours she was spending at our house. But every time I tried to kick her out, she'd remind me that I was the breadwinner of the family and that the bills were going to be rolling in soon. Don't worry, I'll be gone soon, and then you'll have to deal with my daughter, and that I don't envy you that job. Then she moved in close and whispered in my ear. Have you talked to her yet? Tried to, but she wasn't ready yet. Well, I suggest you do it soon. She's feeling better, and if I know her, that stubborn streak is going to surface pretty damn soon. I took her advice to heart. We were now eating as a family every night. Vicky cooked about 20% of the time, and I took care of the other nights. My kids said I wasn't as good a cook as their mother, but didn't bat an eye when I brought home pizza or Chinese. I'd gained 5 pounds since Vicky had come home. Friday, with the kids hopefully asleep in bed and no work tomorrow, I moved in close to cuddle as we got ready to go to sleep. I'd kept to my side after being rebuffed a couple of times, but tonight I was going to push it a bit. When I reached around her, she stiffened. I went further. Do you want to talk, or do we just call it quits and move on separately? I said softly. I'm so angry with you I could scream. Well then, go ahead and scream at me and get it out of your system, because we've got to settle it one way or another. She turned over to face me. How could you think I was cheating on you? Okay, look at it from my perspective. You get unresponsive. We go from 3 to 4 times a week to basically none. When I approach you, you slough me off or outright lie to me. You see a pattern? It was just like my ex-wife acted before everything came crashing down around me. But I wasn't cheating on you. I was trying to spare you the anguish until I knew for certain. What was wrong with me? I guess I wasn't as good an actress as I thought. Don't take this wrong, but you sucked at it. Again, I ask you, where do we go from here? I should take the kids and leave, she said hesitantly. You leave, I flatten out the papers and file. You'd divorce me? Wouldn't want to, but yes, I would. You can be such an uncaring bastard. If you'd had a partner like my ex, you'd be one too. Look, I'm sorry, but if you'd told me of your suspicions, none of this would have happened. So, it's my fault? Yep, but I'll admit I overreacted, and I'm still a little miffed you told your mom before me. I had to use her for babysitting, or I wouldn't have. We both stopped talking. I have a suggestion. Why don't we get a good night's sleep and start fresh in the morning, I said, pulling her tight. I have a better idea, Vicky said, leaning in to kiss me. We didn't get much sleep that night. 6 months later, we were in an expensive women's fashion store. Vicky stepped out, wearing a red dress that could stop anyone in their tracks. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. What do you think? She asked, twirling around so I could see all the sides. You think they'd mind if we used their dressing room for about an hour? And be late for my surprise party? Not in your life. It had been 1 year since her surgery. As we walked back to the car, she squeezed my hand a little tighter. You know I love you, don't you? Never doubted it, I said, looking at her. You jerk. You witch, I replied, pulling her into his arms. I'm just glad I worked it out. You mean you're glad we worked it out, don't you? Whatever, she said, slipping into the car. Starting up the car, I leaned over and kissed her. Also, try and look surprised. Your parents spent a lot of time putting this party together. I found out weeks ago, but why did you give me a heads up? With all the hushed phone calls and sneaking around, I wasn't going to go through that. Again, no more secrets, okay? I kissed her once more before heading out. No more secrets, and talk out our problems and treat the other like it's your last day on Earth with them. That's how we live each day now since Dr. Cube gave us our second chance.